Hi, welcome back to the Sirens Sanctum. I'm Michelle.
I'm Kirsty.
And thank you for being patient with us. That last reading we did, we had no idea how true it would be that we'd be dealing with a car accident.
And just a lot of self-reflection, a lot of review for our own selves.
If, we could have anticipated that, everything was going to rip open and then we'd have to deal with it, might have been a little bit more prepared.
Literally the day after the reading. So it was quite a bumpy few weeks for us, and it's taken us a little while to get back on track.
Thank you for bearing, with us through this. So now, today, we wanted to try and get our feet back up underneath us. I feel like if you went through what we went through, you kind of needed some downtime to, figure out where the bottom is. So the energies that we're going to be coming into are going to have a lot to do with specific review of what you had, I don't know, how would you put it, come to the conclusion of or something between the years of 2000, 2002, and the year 2007 through 2009.
Yeah, you may experience what feels like a place of deja vu. You may actually experience deja vu, or you may experience what you feel like is, I've been here before, I've walked these steps before.
Situations, circumstances, different relationships might pop up, or issues within these things that you may have thought, hey, I already did this.
Yeah, or even especially because that's how I'm kind of experiencing, is a review of decisions or paths that you've walked.
The cards here with Jaguar and Raven coming up are kind of telling us that we're going to have to review those inner spots. Maybe places where the things that we wouldn't even admit to ourselves are sitting in there. They kind of want you to reveal and review what your pattern of choice making was back during those years.
Yeah, like a kind of a repeating, maybe you'll notice a repeating of lessons that you may not have learned in the past, or like a review of experiences that you had that are coming up for you again.
How's it been working for you specifically? You said at night you're having trouble sleeping because you're starting to find yourself back in these years.
Yeah, like I'll be going to bed at night and I'm spending an hour or two in bed at night trying to get to sleep, and I'm actually just wandering these different paths in my mind. So I've actually had to really focus on meditation at night to really get myself to be able to even go to sleep, and then even after that I'm having these strange dreams, so it's bringing up a lot of stuff that maybe had been unresolved, or circumstances that were similar to where I was. It's almost as though the way I'm seeing it is front is back and back is front. So I'm standing at the back end of what was, if you think about it from 10 years ago, or the front end now. You could look at it either way, but both look the same. So it's like seeing it mirrored back and going, okay, I'm a different person now, but I'm walking now the same path. So it's a different path because it's a different me, but it's a similar path.
And Hummingbird kind of represents that type of energy where you can move in all directions, but it all kind of comes out to be the same.
It's also a representative of joy, so I think that this isn't necessarily a review that is to bring the painful revelations that maybe the past couple weeks have brought us through, whatever experiences have brought us to this closure. But I believe that it's a representation that joy is coming, and joy and community are coming from this, and so you don't have to fear in what will be brought up over these few weeks. It may be a little uncomfortable to look back, because I know for me it's been like very discombobulating would be a good word, of looking back and going, I don't know if I really want to look at that
I've
again.
just been totally locked in terror. It's operating with me having to review those anxieties that, for whatever reason, I have chosen to live with, rather than actively try to work on.
Well, and your heart attack was 10 years ago, so right about the same time.
Oh my gosh, thanks for reminding me of that.
So, it was not surprising that your traumas are coming, because it's that review of, pretty much, I would say, estimated between its past 10 to 20 years. But in segments, centuries, I guess, maybe 10, century, 10 years, or decades.
Decades,
yeah.
yes.
Decades, yeah.
So, you really should notice that you'll start to see things that look similar from 2000 to 2002 and from 2007 to 2009. That's the energy working for us, is that we need to review it. And then Jaguar also speaks of a need to walk and treat yourself with integrity, which we just had not too long ago a discussion of the difference between integrity and trustworthiness.
Yes.
And integrity is that thing that operates inside you when no one's around.
It's inside out, whereas trustworthiness is outside in. Kind of like the same thing we learned about the difference between joy and happiness, which is funny that both of them are coming up in this reading. Joy comes from the inside out and not dependent upon anything, whereas happiness comes from the outside in, is dependent upon circumstances.
Which goes back to this, back and forth. The beginning and the end kind of look the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. It's
you're
full
dealing
spiral,
with outside
maybe. We're coming full spiral on this, whereas I think we're getting an opportunity. The energy is saying that we're getting an opportunity to create a new geometrical shape. You and I have kind of talked about that. When we were starting to create a circle, you wear a circle down into a path. You walked it so much. That's why people say coming full circle, because often people walk in circles. They repeat the same things over and over again because they never actually get the lesson. What we've kind of learned over the past couple of years, and through study of sacred geometry and many spiritual principles, is that we should be going full spiral. So coming back to the same path, the same lessons, but as a different person, making different decisions and evolving in your evolution every time you come back. So it's not that you're choosing a different path, it is the same path, but you're a different person, or you're supposed to be a different person every time.
Yeah, it's an evolution up,
so
movement up.
Yeah, so if you feel like you're stuck in a circular pattern or a hamster wheel of life, it's because you haven't learned those lessons to evolve your soul. And what we kind of talked about too was that it's such a slight change of step for it. Like we've kind of found ourselves where fear, anxiety come in, that we've worn this pattern, this circle around in the same place, and that all it takes to create a new pattern is to step outside the circle a little bit and start to create a new shape. The problem is that what happens when you're first creating a new shape is it's uncomfortable, it's difficult, it's new, we resist it, it's frightening, and every time you start to walk that new circle or that new shape and you come into the step pattern of what was, it's easy to fall back into what is easy and what is known. So again, even if you start to create something new, a lot of people can find themselves falling back into the same thing.
Yeah, you can take it like trying to quit smoking. You get going and you get a couple of days under your belt, and then you find, you've made that circle and you've got a choice to continue working on the path of quitting, or, oh, hey, this circle connects here. I can just fall back into what's easy. I can just light that cigarette
up. And it's easy to do that, especially when you have started to create a new shape, and it's so difficult.
Yes,
you walk that circle once.
You got the grass walked down.
If that,
right.
So you're
and over here, you've got a great big divot with some beds and
where the worn path is.
Yep, you know where the potholes are. You know where the difficulties are.
It comes into that idea of the path less chosen. It's harder at first to walk that path less chosen, but in the end, you'll be glad that you did.
Yes.
I think also we have halite here. It's another way they would call this is Himalayan salt, so you could use it cooking and other things, but it's actually a crystal, and it's used for helping to release judgments on oneself, and also helping in self-confidence and self-love, which I think is really important anytime we're reviewing our past.
Well, because you can be really hard. I can be really hard on myself when I look back at different choices.
We're
and things
hardest on
made.
ourselves, I think, than anybody else. We're hardest on ourselves, and we. Especially when we take especially being in the energy of Virgo,
yes.
and the nitpickiness that we can sit and pick at ourselves, I think we need to be careful to hone that energy in and not use it to nitpick ourselves, but actually use it to find those things that we would like to change in a means of integrity, like you were
That's
saying.
what I was going to say, is that brings you kind of back to Jaguar medicine of saying that you should review with integrity those things, but without judgment. Because the judgment isn't going to do you any good anyway. That is then.
it'll just hold you back in the same path and patterning you were before. You have to break out of that to create something new.
And I think you have to stop the "I had no choice" talk.
Yeah.
I think you have to recognize that there's always choices. Some of them may be harder than others, but it's still there.
Yeah, and I think
so
that's...
if you look back at yourself and you go, well, I did it because I didn't have any choice, that's kind of a cop-out.
Well,
that's
even
not
as a child,
integrity.
we were even talking about that earlier. Even as a child, you still kind of have a choice and a voice, even though it may not have been as evolved, or you may not have known that you had a voice. You always had a voice and a choice to make a decision. And I think that's kind of where the energies are leading us back to, is like, okay, you know, like in 2002, 2000, I was 10 to 12 years old. I really thought at the time I didn't have any choice, but now I'm allowed to kind of go back and reclaim the power that I had lost during those years, to create something new from what I lost.
Right, because, you have to recognize that even though you may have been a child and that you may not have had the right to make choices, you still could have fought.
Yeah.
You still could have used your voice and said, I may have to do this, but it's wrong.
Right, instead of just, allowing myself to be victim or you know what I mean? I think that's kind of where it's, again, the same circular patterns that we're talking about. And I think it's also good to remind and recognize that the patterns that we're talking about doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you used to keep smoking cigarettes, it may be bad, or oh, I'm just stuck in the same job. We're talking about things that can feel like you have no control over, like judgment on yourself, or like anger or resentment.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Things that you feel like you really don't have control of, but you do.
Yeah. I can choose to give in to the panic of getting back in a car after that car accident, or I can recognize that I have a road trip to Kansas coming up.
And the harder path is you getting back in the car. It's easy to fall back into that. I'm just going to isolate myself, stay in the house, and never go anywhere,
Put some bubble wrap on the walls, I'll be all right.
But that's not the healthy or the right decision in that case to do. So I think that's kind of what we're recognizing.
And I'm going to try not to be too hard of a judge on myself if I find I fall from time to time.
Oh yeah, that's what Jaguar Medicine I think is talking about too, is that we have to, with integrity comes the recognition that you will make mistakes. Mistakes are what we learn from in life. But remember, I think we kind of brought this up in one of our other readings, there's lessons and blessings. That's how I look at life. If you make a mistake, it was a lesson. Learn from that lesson so you don't have to repeat it again like a Dutch child in the corner. Or it's a blessing. And either way, it's your perspective on how you look at it. But both of them can be positive or both of them can be negative. It's the outlook that you have on what's happening. We could be very negative about the accident. We've kind of had to,
ground ourselves.
My vehicle was totaled. We were damaged. It could have been, but instead we chose to look at it for the blessing and the lesson that it was. And we're thankful we're okay. We're thankful that it wasn't worse. And we're thankful that we had insurance.
As hard as it is for me to say this, I am thankful for the opportunity to reflect on this absolute panic of being in a car that's always driven me, because now I can kind of go, oh, well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, it happened, and it wasn't so bad. So I'm working on using these things that are coming up for me to try to evolve myself and rise my spiral up some.
We're just cats in this life. We have more lives than we can count. The last card is the Four of Swords. Four of Swords saying that you may have felt the pressure of, the swords the past few weeks. You're feeling this pressure, this need for the movement, this need to change something. You may feel like you have big decisions you have to make, or you need to rush and stuff, but it's saying right now it's time to rest. And not rest like we were kind of forced to rest this person, but really rest and go inward and look at
reflective.
Look at what's coming up. Now that we kind of know what the energy is, I don't think I'll be fighting as much at night with this reviewing and just kind of mulling over what it is that's coming up, because the more we try to repress something, the more it's going to come back up. So I think that's kind of what it is too, is be gentle with yourself, but also recognize that this is the time of rest before the next step. Doesn't mean we're done with everything. It doesn't mean that things will just go away, but it does mean that we do need to take time out, rest, recoup, reevaluate, and then restart.
Thanks for joining us. Let us know how the readings are helping or not helping, or whether the energies are working for you.
We'd love to hear how your past couple weeks has been.
Yes, we would.
And let us know.
Check out our Etsy store. We've now got some of our ritual bath salts up, and we started making bath bombs, which we'll be putting up later this week.
And I have some of my artwork posted up there, and thanks for sale. So
yeah,
check it out.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.